Today, we're not talking about a hero, not even an anti-hero. Nope. We're going to be dissecting something else entirely. A force of nature. Really, a predatory constant who moves through time. Let's get into the profile of Cillian, the temporal predator.
This single sentence, this is everything you need to understand Cillian. It's not just a motto, It's his operating system. It defines every single thing he does, every thought he has, whether he's in the 12th century or the 20th. So a philosophy like that, where does it even come from? Well, to really get this predator, we have to go right back to his origins. We're talking about the mud and the smoke of 12th century Ireland. This is where he hammered out his creed of honest greed. Okay, so this is where it all begins. In Gaelic Ireland, Cillian starts out as a bothach. Now, what does that mean? It means he's landless, powerless, literally the lowest rung on the social ladder. In a world where your entire worth is counted in cattle, Cillian has absolutely zero. And this isn't just about being poor. It's a kind of mediocrity that he is absolutely desperate to claw his way out of. And this is the weapon he creates to escape. Honest greed. Now, the key word here really is honest. See, Cillian isn't fooling himself. He's totally self-aware. He knows he's a parasite, and he has come to believe that it's the most rational, the most logical way to exist in a world that's, let's face it, already built on questionable means. This kind of self-serving cleverness, it actually has really deep roots in Irish folklore. Cillian is basically a real-world version of the legend Stingy Jack. You know the guy, the trickster who conned the devil himself, but then got barred from both heaven and hell, doomed to just wander the earth forever? And just like Jack, Cillian's own cunning is what makes him an outcast, trapping him between worlds by his own design. All right, so now let's see how this whole philosophy actually gets put into practice. Because, it's one thing to have a creed, but it's a whole other thing to test it in the fires of war. So the year is 1169. The Anglo-Normans are invading Ireland and they're bringing chaos, fire, and steel with them. Now, for most people, this is an absolute catastrophe, but for Cillian, he sees it as just a market fluctuation, a massive, violent opportunity that's ripe for exploitation.
He doesn't sign up for the war out of any sense of patriotism or duty. No way. He joins because his whole parasitic lifestyle has been thrown into chaos. It's a pure business calculation. The risk of taking an arrow is way better than the certainty of starvation.
So, in the middle of all this chaos, Cillian finds a mentor who speaks his language, an old, cynical mercenary named Malachy, a veteran of the Crusades. And he teaches Cillian that real power isn't about fighting for his side. It's about learning to manipulate the entire battlefield. He shows him how to target readers, because, a headless army is a desperate army, and a desperate army is willing to pay a lot more. And this right here is his point of no return. He's on a mission, supposed to be guarding some cattle. But instead, what does he do? He uses his incredible archery skill to hold off both his own allies and his enemies. He creates a standoff, allowing a totally different group to just swoop in and take the prize. And what does he get for it? A bag of silver. He pockets the enemy's coin while wearing his own kinsman's colors. At that moment, he's not a petty thief anymore. He's a full-blown war profiteer. So he takes this manipulative strategy all the way to its ultimate conclusion. He plays different factions against each other, and when the time is right, he assassinates the leaders on both sides. And you know what? He gets everything he ever wanted. The land, the silver, that noble power he craved. But the prize, it's tainted. He's not respected as a lord. He's feared as a demon, a ghost haunting the woods. He won the game only to find himself completely and utterly alone. So there he is, sitting in his cold stone tower, a king of absolute nothing. And just when you think his story of isolated misery is over, well, it takes a sudden, violent turn into the complete unknown. Just picture it for a second. He's got his silver, he's got his land, he's got his heavy warbow right by his side, but he's surrounded by enemies he created, hunted by the ghosts of his own betrayals. He's the master of two worlds, the conqueror and the conquered, and yet he belongs to neither of them. And then a mist starts to roll in from the bogs, but this isn't a normal mist. It's something ancient, something wrong. It just surrounds his tower, totally thick and silent. And when it finally clears, the stone tower is gone. The green hills of Ireland are gone. He's standing in an alleyway, surrounded by steel and glass, and the air is just thick with exhaust fumes. He's been thrown, somehow, into 1970s America, an era of economic stagflation, Watergate, and all the cynical fallout from the Vietnam War. This is what the source material calls metaphysical limbo. And it's a pretty brilliant idea, right? All of his 12th century power, his land, his reputation, it's completely worthless now. He's gone from being an outcast from his village to being an outcast from his entire century. And now he's forced to start that predatory climb all over again from the very bottom. So how does a medieval predator adapt to the modern world? Well, here's the fascinating part. When Cillian starts to analyze this new concrete jungle, his reaction isn't wonder, and it's not fear. It's validation. He makes 3 really crucial observations. First, all this deep institutional distrust after Watergate, to him, it's just a bigger version of his own creed. Second, corporate power, well, that's just the new feudalism. CEOs and shareholders are the new lords and barons. And third, mass media, television, and advertising, he sees that for what it is, the most efficient weapon for controlling the masses he has ever laid eyes on. This table really illustrates the central idea of his character so well. The special world of war he knew in the 12th century is just mirrored by the social and economic crisis of the 1970s. Battlefield ruthlessness gets a new name, corporate rational egoism. Cillian himself doesn't change one bit. The world just evolves to reward his exact same predatory nature, but now on a global scale. And what's really wild is that even his signature skill, his archery, finds a new and maybe even more dangerous place here. Back in the 12th century, his 100-pound warbow was a weapon of war, sure. But in the 1970s, it's a forgotten relic. And that's what makes it even deadlier. He can outshoot any modern sportsman, and his weapon is a complete anachronism, totally invisible to modern surveillance. His so-called primitive skill makes him the most dangerous man in any room. So what does this all add up to? Where does this leave him? We need to explore the final kind of haunting theme of Cillian's existence. What is his ultimate role in all this? Remember Stingy Jack wandering in the dark with his lantern? Well, in the 20th century, Cillian becomes a kind of living jack-o'-lantern. He is a soul completely out of time, a ghost in the machine. He physically exists in the modern era, but spiritually, he's still back in the 12th century, which means he's forever an outsider. And this is probably the best analogy for his final state. He adapts perfectly. Of course he does. He builds a new fortress of glass and steel and becomes a modern titan. But it's another one of those Pyrrhic victories. He's like a shark in an aquarium, a perfect killing machine in a totally artificial world, able to see everything but connect with absolutely nothing. He's forever separated from it all by a wall of glass. And that leaves us with one final, pretty unsettling thought. When you think about it, Cillian's 12th century ruthlessness, it almost seems honest compared to the complex, bureaucratic corruption of the modern age. So the question for you is this. In a world that so often seems to reward his exact brand of selfish exploitation, is a character like Cillian truly a monster, or is he just a mirror?